My son arrived with a moving truck and announced, "We're taking the master bedroom and you can sleep in the garage," as his wife smiled. But when the realtor called me, "Sir," in front of them, the keys changed hands. His dream shattered. He said it before the engine even cut off. "We're taking the master bedroom. You can sleep in the garage." The truck coughed out one last puff of diesel, the kind that coats your tongue and makes every breath taste like iron. And the men in blue shirts jumped down as if this was a normal day of work. If you're watching this, tell me where you're watching from. Picture my driveway under a hard noon sun. Heat dancing off the pavement, neighbors pretending they aren't looking while they water plants that don't need water. Picture my son on the gravel with his hands on his hips, like a small king claiming land he didn't build. Picture his wife by his side, that practiced little smile that never reaches her eyes. I stood at the porch rail and said nothing, because saying nothing is often the loudest thing a man can do. The front door was open behind me, and the house breathed out the clean smell of wood polish and lavender. That's her scent, my late wife's, caught in the curtains even now. This porch was where she and I drank tea the first morning after we moved in. She had set 2 cups on a tray, her hair tucked under a scarf, because she said paint dust clings to everything, even joy. She ran a finger along the railing and laughed when it came up white. "It'll take time," she told me, "but this will be our sanctuary." I hear that line every time the wind moves the wind chime by the kitchen window. I heard it again when my son pointed at the movers and then at my front door like a traffic cop. "Let's go, boys," he said. "Master bedroom first. Big pieces. The antique dresser. Ours." I looked at the dresser through the doorway. We saved a year to buy it. She traced those oak curves and said it looked like a wave frozen mid-crest. She used to tuck letters into the top drawer, folded into squares. Letters I wrote her on lunch breaks when I worked 2 jobs and ate standing up. That dresser knows the weight of a woman's bracelets and the sound of her laughter in the morning. My son didn't even glance at it. His wife did, though. She ran her eyes over the wood like you run a palm over a store window. "We'll swap the handles," she said to no one. "Gold will suit the light better." "Hello, Dad," my son added after his orders, like the words were a receipt he had to hand me to make the transaction complete. "Hello," I said. I kept my voice flat and calm, the way you keep a note steady when you're tuning a guitar. I saw him flinch, just a half breath. He always hated that voice of mine, the one that doesn't rise. He preferred things loud, messy, certain. It gave him something to push against. He took a step closer. "We've talked about this," he said. It was interesting because we hadn't. He had talked. I had listened to rumors, to little hints, to the way his new wife's parents stared too long at the ceiling when they visited, as if counting square feet with their eyes. But I let him have his line. People need their lines. "You'll be more comfortable in the garage," he said, and the wife's smile held a beat too long, like a photograph that someone refused to stop taking. "Comfort is a strange word," I said. "It means different things to different people." He blinked. The movers lugged a box labeled "Master, bed linens past us." The handwriting wasn't mine. The handwriting wasn't his either. It had the round loops of someone who likes to sign for other people, who enjoys a pen that doesn't belong to her. He tried to laugh. "Don't be dramatic, Dad. We're just being practical. We're family." Family. It's a powerful word until someone uses it like a crowbar. My mind walked backwards into one of those moments that age never lets you keep whole. My wife's hands covered in flour as she clapped them together to dust the air. Our son at the table with a crooked paper crown on his head, 5 years old and sticky with icing. We had no money for a bakery cake that year. She shaped the sponge by hand and whispered to it through the oven door the way mothers whisper to sleeping children. When we brought the cake out, he banged the fork like a tiny king, and I remember the sound of it, tin on wood, eager, happy. I remember her looking at me over his head and saying, "We're not rich, but we're full." That was the first night he fell asleep on my chest while I balanced the bills and counted what we had left. I walked him to his bed, and in the narrow light of the hall, I made a promise to keep him safe. You think promises like that are simple. You don't think about the day your son will stand in your driveway, grown and sharp, and you'll wonder whether safety sometimes means letting him fall on his own sword. The movers reached the threshold, and one of them hesitated. He was older than the rest by a decade, maybe more. He gave me an apologetic look, one that said, "This is above my pay grade, and I hate it anyway. I moved aside and kept my hands in my pockets. A small thing, keeping your hands tucked away. It tells everyone you're not interested in the old game of shove and shout. It tells them you have other games in mind. "Take the mattress too," my son's wife said. "We'll need new sheets." My son nodded, eager to please her, and I wondered if he'd always had that eagerness, or if it was something he learned. His face looked different when he turned to her, a little boy again, peeking through the store window at the train set. My wife used to laugh and say he would chase a new coin if it glinted hard enough in the sun. She said it softly, so softly he never heard, and then she'd kiss the top of his head and buy him a smaller coin, with a ribbon through it. Love is a complicated bargain. You pay with parts of yourself. "Would you like tea?" I asked. I meant it. You can offer tea in the middle of a fire, and it will still be tea. Hospitality is not surrender. It is a mirror. It shows people themselves. "We don't have time," my son said. He raised his voice to the movers again. "Careful with the mirror. That's going in our room." Our room. The words fell like pennies on a drum. A car slowed in front of the house. The neighbor, Mrs. Patel, behind the wheel, pretending to check her phone while her eyes flicked over the scene. I waved. She lifted her hand halfway, then drove on. The sound of the truck ramp thudded. A crow landed on the mailbox, cocked its head, decided this show was worth a seat. "By the way," my son said, "tomorrow's my birthday. We're having a few friends. It'll be easier if you're settled in the garage by then. Less confusion." I nodded once. Tomorrow. Funny how a word can mean something and nothing at the same time. Tomorrow is a promise to the impatient. "My key," he said, "works for the back door, but I want the rest. We should centralize access, for safety." There it was, said out loud. "Keys. You can tell when someone has rehearsed a line by how clean it comes out." I looked at his hand, already extended, expecting metal. I let the silence sit on his palm like a moth. "Later," I said. "When the boxes are in." He pulled back as if I had slapped him. "You're making this harder than it has to be." "Am I?" I asked, because questions are useful tools. They turn anger into thought. He didn't take the bait. He turned away to his wife, and they spoke in low voices, the kind that are not really low, the kind that want to be overheard. She glanced at me twice, quick, like a magician checking if the audience is following the hand. I kept my eyes on the truck, where a cardboard flap trembled in the breeze and showed a flash of new linen, cream-colored and expensive. They had prepared for this day, bought sheets, picked out handles, booked men with strong backs and no questions. They had planned everything except me. Inside, the kitchen clock clicked toward 1. The house held its breath in the way empty theaters do before a performance. I walked back through the door, and the cool air welcomed me with its small, faithful hand on my face. I set the kettle on. The old hum of the element sounded like a memory. On the wall, the calendar still had last month's page turned out. My wife used to mark birthdays with little stars. She wrote our son's name in blue and sketched a tiny crown beside it. A private joke she would share by tapping the paper with one finger. "Our prince," she'd say. And we would both smile because we were young and because youth confuses hope with destiny. I opened the drawer under the kettle and took out a string. I wrapped it around my fingers, a habit I learned the year she got sick. When the worst days came, I would do that, wrap and unwrap, while the doctors spoke in careful voices that never said the word we were both hearing anyway. She died in winter, when the light goes out early and the air tastes like metal. Our son didn't come home much then. He called. He sent flowers that smelled too sweet. He said he was busy with work, and then with a new job, and then with a new life. Grief is quiet company. It sits at your kitchen table and counts the minutes with you. It teaches you how to wait. The kettle clicked off. I didn't make tea. I turned it on again and waited for the second click. Outside, boots thumped on stairs. A box scraped a door frame. A young man's voice said, "Sorry, sir," to empty air. The word hung in the kitchen, harmless, almost funny. "Sir?" The house knew who it belonged to. It had watched me carry paint up the stairs in both hands. It had watched me dry dishes with a towel, while the woman I loved told stories about the neighbors I pretended not to know. It had watched me fall asleep on the couch with the television blue on my face because sometimes sleep is easier that way. Houses keep their own ledgers. They write in the margins too. I went to the hallway and opened the closet. The safe sat on the floor behind a stack of winter blankets. It is not a large safe, nothing dramatic. It has the patient look of a thing that does its job without applause. I ran my palm over the cold metal and then closed the door. Not yet, I told it, as if it were an old friend eager to join the conversation. Patience is part of the plan. Surprise is the rest. Dad? My son's voice in the doorway, trying for casual. What are you doing? Looking for a screwdriver, I said. The curtain rod is loose in the guest room. The lie was small and gentle, like moving a plate 2 inches to the left at dinner so a child thinks he is helping. He didn't check. He never checks the small things. He leaned against the frame and wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. Hot, he said. We should get the AC serviced. I did last month, I replied. It's in good shape. He nodded as if he had arranged it. A mover squeezed past him. The box cut the air with the scent of lavender sachets. She must have bought those yesterday, I thought. New smells to wash out the old. People try to repaint memory with scent and light. It never holds. By the way, he said casually, as if the thought had just occurred, though I could hear the rehearsal in it. Mom would want us all together. You know that. I looked at him and saw the boy again. The 5-year-old with a paper crown and icing on his cheek. I also saw the man with a watch that costs too much and a jaw that clenches when he doesn't get what he wants. I saw my failure and my success braided together. She wanted us kind, I said. Together was just a way to practice it. He shifted. Don't make this philosophical. It's just a room. Rooms matter, I said. Ask anyone who has slept in the wrong one. The afternoon sagged into the kind of heat that makes houses quiet. The movers carried the mattress down the hall like a king on a litter. His wife followed them, pointing, already placing her rug in her mind, already seeing herself in the mirror that would face the tall window, hair brushed, camera lifted, caption, New Beginnings. I could hear the little clicks of her nails on her phone as she sent a message to someone waiting for a picture of the room that wasn't yet hers. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I let it buzz once, twice, watch the screen light the old wood. I didn't pick it up. Then I did. A number I knew, a name that has always spoken to me with a certain shape of respect. I kept my voice level. Hello? Good afternoon, sir, the voice said, warm, professional, unaware of the stage set outside. Just confirming our appointment tomorrow at 10. Papers are ready for review. If you prefer, I can swing by later today. I looked through the doorway. My son was in the hallway with the mattress men, laughing too loudly. He caught my eye, and for a moment, he looked like a child caught with a hand in the jar. Then he lifted his chin and returned to his laugh. I turned my body away from him and spoke softly into the phone. Tomorrow is fine, I said. But if you happen to be nearby today, come by, anytime before 5. Of course, sir, the voice said. I'll call when I'm close. I hung up and set the phone down. The word sir lingered in the kitchen like steam after a kettle. I did not smile. I do not smile at the first move. People always think the first move is the victory. It is only permission to play. By late afternoon, the master bedroom looked like a showroom halfway through a sale. Boxes stacked like city blocks. The dresser against the wrong wall. The curtains still ours, still anchored. Because they didn't know where I had hidden the little hex key. She used to joke that I could hide a river in a teaspoon and no one would find it. I was tired then, carrying our life, and I'd say, what good is a hidden river? She would touch my jaw and say, it waters the roots when no one's looking. At 6, I grilled chicken on the back patio. The smell drifted through the open door. He came out, hungry, because hunger is honest, even when people aren't. He had always been a boy who follows food. We're going out, he said, shoving his hands into his pockets. For my birthday, early celebration. He looked at me as if waiting for protest to give him something to push off of. I flipped the chicken and said, have fun. Drive safe. He hated that. He wanted me to beg for a seat at his table. He wanted me to show him my throat. Instead, I offered him a plate. There's some ready, I said. He shook his head and left, his wife behind him, her perfume cutting, the barbecue smoke in half. When the car pulled out, the crows returned. They hopped along the fence like tiny dark judges. I ate alone at the patio table where my wife used to read, one foot tucked under her, glasses sliding down her nose. The house settled into the kind of quiet that magnifies small sounds. the tap of a cooling grill, the soft shiver of leaves, the little chime of the text that told me, an hour later, that they would be home late. I washed my plate and put it on the rack to dry. I walked down the hall and stood in the doorway of the master bedroom. Moonlight was slipping up over the fence, laying a silver edge along the boxes. I touched the dresser. The wood was cool. In the top drawer, under the felt where she kept her bracelets, I had tucked away a folded envelope years ago, the paper the color of old cream. I slid the drawer open a finger's length, then closed it again. Not yet. The night makes men careless. Let morning do the work. I slept in my bed that night, in the master bedroom they said was theirs. I didn't lock the door. Locks are for fear. I set my phone on the nightstand, screen down, and listened to the house breathe. Around midnight, their key turned in the back. Soft steps, soft laughter, a quiet shush when the laughter rose. I kept my eyes open and looked at the ceiling, where she and I once stuck glow-in-the-dark stars because the power went out and she wanted a sky. Most of them had peeled away over the years, but 3 still clung there stubbornly. It felt right. 3 is a number you can stand on. In the morning, I rose early. I made tea. I sliced an apple and set half on a small plate near the sink, the way I always did for her. Habit is a way of remembering. When he woke, my son came into the kitchen rubbing his jaw, the way he always does when he slept late. He opened the fridge and drank orange juice from the bottle. He turned, saw me watching, and put it back with that old defiant flick to his wrist. "You'll be moved by noon," he said, as if we were picking up where we left off, as if the night had brought instructions. "I'll be where I need to be," I said. He didn't understand that sentence. He wasn't meant to. He glanced at the counter, looking for keys. He didn't find them. He checked the hook by the back door. Empty. He checked his wife's eyes, and they traded a look I had seen 1,000 times in 1,000 different rooms. The look of 2 people building a secret together and finding that the door is heavier than they thought. At 9:40, my phone rang. I wiped my hands on a towel and answered. "I'm a block away," the voice said, bright, efficient. "I'll be there in 2 minutes." "Good," I said. "We'll be ready." I could have looked at my son then. I could have made a speech. I could have said, "Today is not your day," or "You're about to learn something you should have learned long ago." I didn't. I stood in the doorway and watched. The sunlight creep across the living room floor, a slow, patient sweep that touched the rug we bought on a winter sale and the chair where she sat the evening she told me we should stop saving our best plates for guests. "We're the ones living here," she'd said, smiling. "We should taste the good things first." A car door closed out front. Footsteps on the path. A brisk knock, 3 taps, confident. My son, halfway down the hall with another box, paused and looked at me. His wife was behind him with tape in her hand. I waited. I let the moment stretch until it hummed. Then I went to open the door. I opened the door, and the morning stepped back to make space for him. Dark suit, neat tie, a folder tucked under his arm like a promise. He smiled the way professionals do, warm, quick, already scanning the faces. "Good morning, sir," he said to me first, as if the rest of the scene were just furniture. My son stood halfway down the hall with a box in his arms, his wife a step behind him, with tape stuck to her wrist. The word "sir" was a small stone dropped into still water. You could see the circles move out across their faces. "Come in," I said, calm, easy. The house took his shape the way a glove takes a hand. He wiped his shoes on the mat without looking down. Habit. People who know rooms respect floors. "Apologies for the short notice," he said quietly, moving close so we almost had our own air between us. I was nearby. I brought the folder, and per standard practice, I also brought a locksmith to rekey before we photograph. Security and all that. He tipped his head toward the path. A second man was there, tool bag in hand, waiting with that respectful stillness people have when they stand near doors they don't own. "We can do it later if it's inconvenient." "It's convenient," I said, and I let my eyes rest briefly on my son, then drift back to the Realtor, as if nothing important had happened in that glance. My son set the box down too hard. The tape split with a dry gasp. "What's this?" he asked, pretending surprise, his voice already a bit too tight around the edges. "We're in the middle of something." The Realtor, to his credit, read the room without picking a side. He flipped the folder open and held out a manila envelope to me. "3 copies as requested, sir. The updated listing agreement for the cottage and the maintenance authorization for the main property. Sign where I flagged. We can go over anything you want." "Thank you," I said. I didn't look at the papers yet. I let the envelope hang in my hand like it was nothing and everything. "Let's start with the locks." The locksmith stepped in when I waved. Average height, careful eyes. He smelled faintly of clean metal and work done right. "Morning," he said, to the air in general. He looked to me for permission and not to my son, and that tiny fact rearranged the air. My son's wife lifted her chin. "We have keys," she said, smiling a smile that had served her well with waiters and front desks. "All set." "We're changing them," I said lightly. "Best practice." I nodded toward the back door first. "Start there." The locksmith didn't wait for more. He moved down the hall, his tools making that soft clink that sounds like rain if you like it and like trouble if you don't. My son took 2 steps after him. "Hold on," he said. "Who authorized this?" "I did," I said, same even tone. "You know how many people have had keys over the years? Clean slate." "That's not necessary," he said. He looked at the realtor as if he had found a referee. "We live here." The realtor smiled politely. "I'm here to meet with Mr. Harris." He used my name, the old one that came with the mortgage, the one my wife wrote on the first check with a flourish. He glanced at me for backup, and I gave him a small nod. He continued, careful and firm. "For insurance, it's wise to rekey when we update access. We'll provide the new set to the owner when we're done." The owner, another stone into water. My son's hand flexed at his side. His wife's smile thinned, then tried to widen again and failed. "Won't take long," the locksmith called from the back, already loosening the faceplate. The screwdriver made a steady sound. You could feel the house listen. "Why are you listing anything?" my son asked me. The question was awkward, too big for his mouth, like a dime pushed under a door. "We told you, we're moving in." "We're moving boxes," I said. "Moving in is something else." I turned to the realtor. "Coffee?" "If it's no trouble," he said, and I liked him more for asking. In the kitchen, the kettle hummed and the scent of fresh grind filled the room. I could feel my son at my back, his breath held, waiting for a move he could point at and call unfair. I didn't give him one. I poured coffee for the realtor. I poured water for myself. Calm, measure, no raised voices, let the tools do the talking. We sat at the table, papers between us. He slid a page forward. "Just to reconfirm language we discussed, sir. Title remains in your sole name, as amended after your wife's passing. Your living trust holds the cottage. The main house is yours personally. I've noted that access codes and physical keys are to be held by you, and any person you authorize in writing. We'll change the locks today and update the alarm company this afternoon." He spoke like a man reading a grocery list. Simple, plain, certain. I didn't look at my son while the word sole name found a home in the air. I nodded slowly. "Good." My son moved closer to the table. "You can't do that without telling us," he said, voice rising half a step. "I'm telling you now," I said softly. "Listen." He did not know how to listen without hearing anger. The absence of anger confused him like silence. Confuses a man used to noise. He looked at his wife and found the same confusion in her face. It wasn't fear yet. It was the moment before fear, the one that tastes like paper in your mouth. The locksmith appeared in the kitchen doorway with a small pile of brass shining in his palm. He addressed me. "Back door done, sir. 2 new copies. I'll start on the front and the patio next." He held the keys out. I didn't stand. I simply extended my hand. The brass slid easy against my skin, cool, light, final. "Thank you," I said. I set the 2 keys on the table, not near my son, not near his wife. I placed them by the papers, next to my water glass, small moves. "Why 2?" my son asked, trying for authority and finding only echo. "One for me," I said. I touched the first key. "One for the safe." He stared. A flicker, fast, went through his eyes. The safe. He had never asked about it. He had assumed it held nothing worth naming. His wife's smile tried to lock onto this new shape and failed again. The locksmith went back to his work. The soft clink resumed. The realtor tapped a page with his pen. "Sign here, sir. And here." I signed. The pen moved without shaking. The name has weight. It remembered how to write itself. While I signed, I remembered her voice reading letters aloud at this same table, tracing her finger under my words and laughing at the places I forgot commas. "I'll fix your grammar and you fix the roof," she'd said once. "Deal?" I had kissed her flour-dusted thumb and said, "Deal." When I slid the signed pages back, the realtor gathered them with a neat hand and tucked them away. He took a breath as if to stand, then paused, as if remembering something he should say as a courtesy. "One more thing. As we discussed, sir, I can have a lockbox installed if you like, but since you prefer not to, I'll keep all keys with me until photographs are done. You'll have the master set. Anyone else enters only with your consent." My son's wife found her voice. "We consent," she said quickly. The realtor looked at her with polite confusion, then back to me. "I need the owner's permission," he said, his tone still friendly, still simple. "You have it," I said. I picked up the 2 keys from the table. I put one into my pocket. I tapped the other against my palm once and then set it inside the drawer where we kept the napkins, closing the drawer softly. The sound was very small. It felt like the click of a camera catching the moment between expressions. "We won't need a lockbox." My son's mouth opened and closed. The movers' voices drifted down the hall, careful now, hushed. People feel where power sits. They don't need speeches. When the front door lock turned under the locksmith's hand, a clean new click echoed toward us, and I watched my son flinch again, barely. The locksmith came back, held up 2 more keys. "Front and patio, sir." He glanced at my son. "Will, need to collect any old copies, too. Insurance thing." He offered the keys to me, not to the air. I took them. The brass rested on my skin like small truths. I didn't look at my son when I said, "We'll gather all the old ones after we're done. For now, thank you." The realtor stood. He shook my hand. "I'll email confirmations this afternoon," he said. "Shall I send the photographer tomorrow?" "Thursday," I said. "Early." "Thursday it is?" He nodded to my son and his wife with that same professional kindness, like a man leaving a waiting room. "Good day." At the door he added, "Call if you need anything else, sir." Then he was gone, and the house was ours again. Ours meaning mine and the memories that had paid the mortgage month after month. For a long moment, no one spoke. The smell of coffee cooled. The kettle ticked as it lost heat. Outside, the truck rattled as the movers shifted weight from one foot to another. My son finally found a sentence. "This is ridiculous," he said. "We're family." "We are," I said. "That's why I didn't call the police when you shouted orders to strangers in my hall." His wife stepped in. "It's not like that," she said, smile sliding back into place like a mask put on in a hurry. "We were trying to surprise you, make it easier. We thought—" "You thought," I said, and let the rest hang in the air. "I have always found that people will finish their own sentences if you give them enough rope." She swallowed. He ran a hand through his hair and looked past me at the old clock on the wall, as if time might take his side. "My friends are coming tonight," he said. "It's my birthday. We're celebrating." "Happy birthday," I said. He waited, expecting a lift, an opening, a place to plant a demand. None came. "We'll have dinner in the dining room," he said. "We'll need space." "I'll eat in the kitchen," I said. "Practice your hosting." He stared at me, thrown by the lack of fight. The truth is, nothing makes a bully as nervous as a man who refuses to be a wall. He wants to climb something. He wants something to push. I offered him air instead. He left the room in 3 long steps, his shoulders up too high, the box he had dropped forgotten at his feet. His wife hovered, then followed, her perfume trailing like a marker line. In the hallway, I heard the soft thunder of them talking without wanting to be heard. The words keys, owner, photographs, floated back like leaves against a current. I washed the cups and set them to dry. I wiped the table until it shone the way it used to when she did it, with that small circular motion of her wrist that made even cleaning look like affection. By afternoon, the locks were changed and the copies were sitting where I wanted them to sit. The locksmith left with a nod and a receipt folded into quarters. The movers stood by their truck, looking at me the way men look. At the weather, when they want to know if the rain is real, I walked to them and paid them for their time. I added extra for the way the oldest one had looked at me earlier with quiet apology. "Unload what you've already brought into the guest room," I said. Nothing else goes into the master unless I ask for it. I kept my voice easy, clear as kind. They nodded, quick, grateful to have a rule. Rules are kindness too. My son watched from the porch, his face blank. Blank is just anger with a cover on it. He didn't argue with the movers because even he knew the line between pride and public scenes. His wife pulled him by the sleeve into the house and shut the door. Through the glass, their shapes moved, fast and sharp. Their shadows cut across the rug where she used to read, slow and soft. I stood for a while and let the heat sit on my shoulders. The crows were quiet now. Even they knew the show had changed. At 5:30, I boiled pasta and made a quick sauce, the way she used to on nights when work ran late and hunger was a problem to be solved, not a tragedy to be sung. I ate at the kitchen counter with the radio turned low. Their voices in the dining room rose and fell, friends arriving in bright clumps of laughter, bottles clinking, a word or two thrown toward the kitchen like scraps. Garage, boundaries, old-fashioned. I rinsed my plate and set it upside down on the rack. I wiped the counter, I dried my hands. I walked to the hallway and stood where the light from the dining room cut a warm yellow strip across the floorboards. "Dad," my son called, like a line thrown across a gap. "We're starting." "Enjoy," I said. I didn't step in, I didn't ask for a chair, I didn't carry a joke in on my back to ease their nerves. I went to the living room and sat in the chair by the window. I took the soft envelope I had laid there in the afternoon and held it like a bird. Paper is stronger than people think. It can carry whole futures without tearing. I slipped it open just enough to see the first line, the date in the top right corner, the notary's stamp in blue, the quiet grammar of it all. My wife's name sat beside mine, like it always had, even now, even silent. I put the envelope back without a sound. Not yet. Not tonight. Tonight I wanted the house to feel the new keys in its belly and get used to the taste. From the dining room, the laughter tried to grow roots and failed. Laughter forced into a place it doesn't belong. Always sounds like chairs scraping. Someone raised a toast and mispronounced my wife's name. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe it was the way people forget the tongue's path when the heart is empty. I let it pass. I let most things pass. It's the few you hold that make the difference. I pictured my son at the head of the table that wasn't his, explaining to his friends the plan he had been living in his head. The plan where he takes the master. The plan where I smile and vanish quietly into the garage like smoke. I pictured the moment those same friends would ask where the cake was, because even adults expect cake when someone says birthday. I pictured him reaching for the drawer where the candles always live and finding it empty now because I had moved them this afternoon to the cupboard above the stove. Small kindness, small control. Let him ask me. Let him practice the word, please. He did not. He sent his wife. She stepped into the kitchen on high heels that sank slightly into the old wood and stood there a beat too long, waiting for me to look up. "Candles," she said, soft, as if we were two people in a shop at closing time. "In the cupboard above the stove," I said. "Thanks," she said, and then, quickly, "We'll keep them here." "You'll keep them there," I said, and went back to my quiet. When the singing started, it sounded thin, like a song sung by people who don't know the words well enough to make it matter. He blew out the candles and called, loud enough to reach me, "Make a wish." The old wish I have for him is the same I had when he was 5, that he learns kindness the way a hand learns a tool, by use. The new wish I had for him was narrower, that he feels the shape of a door closing and understands the cost of demanding keys to rooms he did not build. They ate cake without offering me a slice. That was fine. I wasn't hungry. The night turned the windows into mirrors, and in them I saw a man who looks like me but wears more stillness than I remember. Around 9, their friends left in a cluster of perfume and promises. At 9:30, the house sighed as the last car door shut. My son and his wife cleared plates with movements that had a little too much force in them. She stacked knives with a jangling sound that would have made my wife wince. He dropped a bottle and caught it too late, foam leaping out like anger. He swore. He glanced toward me and then away. "Good night," I said, and stood. I took the envelope from the arm of the chair and slipped it under my arm like nothing at all. In the hall, I passed the mirror and saw my face. It was the face of a man walking toward a safe with steady hands. It was the face of a man who had been called Sir in his own kitchen and remembered that the word fits. In the bedroom, the moon lay on the floor in a pale square. I opened the top drawer of the dresser and slid the envelope into the space above the felt where her bracelets used to live. I paused, then lifted it out again. Better now. Better when the house could hear it. I went to the closet, opened the door, moved the blankets aside, and touched the safe. It did not need me to talk to it, but I spoke anyway, soft, the way I used to speak into my son's hair when he was small and asleep, and the world was an easy thing. Tomorrow, I said to the steel. We'll do it tomorrow. I closed the closet and sat on the edge of the bed. I could hear them whispering down the hall, planning new plans, looking for new levers. I lay back and stared at the 3 stubborn stars on the ceiling. I thought about locks and keys and words that fit and words that don't. I thought about the way the realtor had said owner like it was geography you could stand on. I thought about my wife's small laugh when a plan came right and the way she'd tilt her head and say, there it is, like a bird spotting its nest from the air. The house settled around me, the new tumblers resting in their new grooves, everything in the right place for once. I closed my eyes and let the quiet stand guard. Tomorrow would be work. Tonight, I slept in the room I built, under the roof I paid for, in the bed that still remembered our hearts. Morning poured into the house like clear water, and the first thing I heard was a drawer opening the wrong way. It was the sound of someone who doesn't know where things live and doesn't care to learn. I sat at the table with my tea and watched the light slide across the floorboards toward my feet. When my son came in, he had the look of a man who slept with a plan under his pillow and woke up to find it crumpled. He went straight for the hooks by the back door, checked for keys that were no longer there, and tried to make it look like he wasn't checking. His wife followed a step behind, phone in hand, thumb moving quick, eyes bright and flat. Morning, I said. We need to finish the move, he said, skipping the word back. Let's not drag this out. The garage is cleared. I swept it yesterday, I said. For the car. He stared at me as if the sentence had insulted him. Dad, stop. We're not doing this dance. We talked last night. We'll take the master. You'll be more comfortable downstairs. We'll swap things today. And we'll need all the keys. I took a sip of tea. Sit. Eat something. He didn't sit. His wife looked at the counter and saw the plate with sliced apples and the knife set square to the board. She moved it a little. A nothing move meant to claim space. The blade flashed in the soft light and then settled. My parents are coming, she said. At 10. They'll help. She smiled, all teeth, no warmth. They're practical? Practical is good, I said. Let's be practical. He folded his arms. Good. Then let's agree. You don't need a master bedroom. We do. We're starting a family. You're starting a habit, I said. Not the one you think. He frowned. I don't know what that means. I know, I said, and stood. The chair legs made a small sound on the wood. I walked past him, past the hallway where the new keys had clicked yesterday, past the dresser that had been shifted 2 inches in the wrong direction by hands that don't listen to rooms. I opened the closet and moved the blankets aside. The safe sat exactly where it had sat for years, patient, heavy, sure. I knelt and set my palm on the metal, as if feeling a forehead for fever. It was cool. I spun the dial the way I have spun it 100 times. A quiet code in tired air. Behind me, they had followed but kept their distance like spectators who aren't sure when the trick begins. What's in there? My son asked, trying casual. Paper, I said, the kind that doesn't go soft when you wet it. I opened the safe, and the little light inside made a small square of gold on the closet floor. I took out a flat cream envelope, the good kind, the kind a notary likes to touch. I took out a thin blue folder with a brass fastener at the top. I took out a velvet ring box that had belonged to my wife's grandmother and set it aside on the blanket, not because I needed it, but because I'd like seeing it here in the open for a minute. Then, I closed the safe without looking at them, and stood. Let's use the table, I said. My voice was normal. The house knew the sound of it. In the kitchen, I set the envelope and the folder down between the cup rings that mark a life. I slid my thumb under the flap and fanned the papers like a deck of cards. The stamps showed blue and raised. The signatures sat steady wherever they were needed. Do you remember when your mother and I bought this house? I asked, not looking at him yet, my eyes on the dates. He didn't answer. I do, I said. I remember the pen the broker used, how it left a tiny blot if you paused too long. I remember your mother laughing because the kitchen had a window over the sink, and she said kitchens should always be able to see the sky. I remember her finger on the contract as she whispered, "This is our anchor. Promise me we won't let anyone cut the rope." I tapped the corner of the top page. I promised. "This is manipulative," my son's wife said. Her voice was smooth, trained, ready for hard rooms. "No one needs a story. We need logistics." "Then listen to logistics," I said. "This is the title. Sole owner, me. This is the recorded deed, me. This is your mother's will, revised after we learned words like oncology and hospice. And here," I placed a paper carefully in front of him, "is the clause she added because she knew people change when they smell money. It says the house transfers to you only upon my death, and only if you have not attempted," her word was attempted, "to coerce me to relinquish it while I'm alive." I let that sit. Words can work on a room like weather. "And this," I slid the blue folder over an inch, "is a letter she wrote to you. Not for me to read, for you. I have not opened it. I will not open it. You can read it when you leave today. The note on the back says, 'For him, when he forgets whose house made him.'" Her handwriting. He reached for the letter and stopped like a hand that finds heat. His face changed in a way that made me think of the first time he saw the ocean. 5 years old, knees shaking, unsure if the hugeness would hold him or pull him under. "This is ridiculous," he said, but the word had no spine. "No one is coercing anyone. We're family." "You keep using that word," I said. "I don't think you know how it's built." "Stop talking in riddles," he snapped. "Say what you want." "I want respect," I said. "And here's the practical version, because you like practical. You may stay in this house as my guests for 2 weeks. You will use the guest room, which has a very good mattress. You will clean up your boxes by tonight. You will not touch the master bedroom again. You will not bring your friends here and have them dine in the room where your mother kept her Sunday china. You will not ask me for keys that are mine. If you agree, you sign here." I placed a simple printed page on the table. Guest agreement, basic, clear, with dates and a line for each of their names. "And in 2 weeks, you leave kindly and we share dinner before you go. If you don't agree, you and your truck leave today before noon. That is the practical." My son laughed a jumpy laugh. "You can't evict your own son." "You aren't tenants," I said gently. "You are guests. I can decide who my guests are." His wife's smile flickered. "My parents will be here in 20 minutes, she said. "I think we should wait." "Let's wait," I said. "We'll all like the same view." He paced, a tight line between the sink and the fridge. His shoulders rose with each turn. He looked at the guest agreement, at the line for his name. He pressed his tongue into the side of his cheek the way he did as a child when he knew the rule and wanted to break it just to hear the sound it made. The doorbell rang. It was the kind of ring that announces itself, the kind good doorbells use in good neighborhoods. I didn't move. "I'll get it," his wife said. She smoothed her hair with her palm like a curtain straightened for the audience and walked fast. I could feel the change in the house as soon as she opened the door. Some people bring warmth into rooms, some bring drafts. Her parents brought polished cold. They entered like they were stepping into a showroom. His wife's mother scanned the crown molding as if appraising it. Her father held himself as though he were about to make an offer on something he didn't quite like but would take if the numbers worked. They kissed the air near our cheeks. They smelled of cologne and car leather. "You look well," her mother said to me in a tone that suggests surprise. Then she turned to her daughter. "Is everything prepared?" "We're just sorting the last details," my son said, grabbing the moment, grateful for any audience that might lean his way. "We were telling Dad that it's time for the master to be used by a family starting out. More practical, he'll be fine in the garage for now. We'll renovate it. We'll make it nice." Her father nodded as if he were examining a balance sheet. "Certainly pragmatic," he said. "You can make a very decent suite out there. Many people do. We did it for our groundskeeper at the lake house. He's very grateful." I looked at the man who had never lifted a shovel in his life and thought about gratitude as an object he keeps in a cupboard to pull out when he wants to hear the sound of thanks. I stood and gestured to the table. "We're discussing something else," I said. "The owner is." Her mother's eyes sharpened at the word. "We all understand it's family property," she said, with that silky firmness that has won many small battles over restaurant tables and service counters. "That's what they told us." "That's what they assumed," I said. "Sit. Let's be clear." They didn't sit. Power likes to stay standing. So did I. I held up the deed. This is mine, all of it, not half, not in theory, on paper, on record. I tapped the will. This says he inherits later if he behaves now. He did not. So later just got farther away. I nodded at the blue folder. That is for him, from his mother. It says more than I can say without losing my temper. Her father tried a smile that showed teeth. You can't talk to him like this, he said, stepping closer to my son by instinct. He's building a life. He's your legacy. He's my son, I said, which is a better word. Legacy is what people say when they can't remember how to love the living. Her mother looked at her daughter and then back at me. We just want what's best for them, she said, slow, patient, condescending. You're alone now. This big space is wasted. You should be in a smaller room. They should be comfortable. I am comfortable where my wife and I chose to be comfortable, I said. Comfort, as I told your son, is a strange word. You're using it to mean I want. You should just say I want. It's shorter. My son's face had gone tight. This is going nowhere, he said. We're talking in circles. Just sign the house over. You don't even need it. We'll take care of it. We'll take care of you. I looked him in the eyes. You told me to sleep in the garage, I said softly. That is not how a man speaks to someone he plans to take care of. He flushed. His wife reached for his arm as if she could pull him back into a better sentence. He shook her off. Fine, he said. If you won't be reasonable, we'll do this another way. We'll change the locks ourselves if we have to. No, I said, and the word stopped him like a hand on his chest. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The locks are already changed. You watched it. The keys are where they should be. The alarm company knows my name. The realtor knows my name. The county knows my name, and I lifted the guest agreement. Now you know my terms. Her. Father bristled. Legal intimidation, he said. We can have our attorney. You may hire anyone you like, I said. He will tell you what this paper says. He will tell you who owns this place. He will tell you how far family gets as a legal argument when someone tries to force an old man out of his bedroom. Then he will send you a bill for the time it took to teach you what you could have learned for free by being decent. Her mother let out a breath and checked her watch. Her daughter watched me with those bright, flat eyes that have learned how to bend men. I am not one of those men. She tried a new route. We came here to celebrate his birthday, she said, as if the claim were a passport. It would be nice if today felt like family. Then behave like family, I said. Start by apologizing. Start by asking, not telling. Start by moving your boxes into the guest room without snapping orders at men with sore backs. Start by not smirking when you tell someone older than you to sleep by the paint cans. Silence prickled the edges of the room. The fridge motor ticked. Outside, a delivery truck downshifted and moved on. My son looked at the guest agreement again, and the muscle in his jaw jumped like a fish at the surface. We are not signing anything, he said. This is our house too. We're staying. Then you're trespassing, I said, still calm, and I will call someone whose voice is louder than mine to explain it to you. But I would rather not. So let's do this like people who will have to see each other again and not hide at the supermarket. He sneered. It was a new expression on his face, and it didn't fit him. He reached out as if to grab the envelope or the deed or the keys or something that would feel like a lever in his hand. I didn't move. He stopped halfway, fingers hovering, and for a second he was 5 again, stopped by an invisible line at the door to the oven. Not today, Ethan, I said, quiet as the inside of a church. You'd be in the way. The name landed. His wife looked at him, angry because he had made the mistake of moving without a plan. Her parents shifted, a small flinch, as if someone had closed a window they wanted open. Fine, he said, but it came out ragged. We'll leave. We don't need this drama. We'll come back when you're reasonable. Take your truck, I said. Take your boxes. Leave the master as you found it. If I find one scratch, you can explain it to your mother's photo. Her mother rolled her eyes. This is pointless, she said to her daughter. We'll talk later. In private, there are other ways. There are always other ways, I said, but there is only one right way. They filed out in a line that tried to look like dignity. It looked like retreat. At the door, my son stopped. He turned, not toward me, but toward the dresser that had been moved 2 inches. And for a second, I thought he would push it back, that his hands would find a way to do something right and small. He didn't. He shut the door a little too hard. The The sound ran through the house and disappeared. I stood for a moment in the kitchen and let the quiet return to its job. Then I washed my cup. I wiped the counter. I carried the velvet box back to the closet and placed it on the top shelf where my wife used to hide small gifts she pretended not to buy. On my way back past the dresser, I stopped. I put my palm flat on the wood and felt its cool patience. Then I slid the drawer open and took out the blue folder again. I held it to my chest, thinking of her script on the back. For him, when he forgets whose house made him. And for a long minute, I wanted to open it and read her words to him out loud, to put them in the air like a blessing with thorns. But it was not my letter. So I set it on the hall table, where he would see it. I laid a key on top, not to the house, but to the old filing cabinet in the garage where he keeps his childhood trophies. A small message: some things are yours. Find them there. At noon, the movers came back in, slower now, faces lined with the kind of tired that isn't just from lifting. I paid them again. Take everything labeled master back to the truck, I said. Guest room only, nothing in here changes. The oldest mover nodded, grateful for instructions with respect sewn into them. He touched the brim of a cap he wasn't wearing, an old habit maybe from a father who had one, and said, "Yes, sir." By 2, the master room was itself again, the dresser aligned with the window the way it should be, the bed straight, the curtains quiet. I stood in the doorway and breathed. If peace had a smell, it would be lavender and wood polish and a spring breeze finding its way through cotton. I sat on the mattress edge and felt the give beneath me. I pulled the photo from the nightstand drawer, her in a shawl by the lake on that cold April morning, hair tucked, smile small, eyes warm, and propped it upright. We did our part, I said to the empty air. We kept the rope. At 3, my phone buzzed, the Realtor again. All confirmed for Thursday, sir, he said. Photographer at 8. I'll bring the lockbox paperwork just in case you change your mind. I won't, I said. But thank you. He hesitated, then, in a lower voice. If you need a referral for counsel, I know a very good one. Not saying you will, but I know a good one too, I said. I married her, and she left me with notes. He laughed, kind, then caught himself. Of course, sorry, Thursday at 8. After I hung up, I walked out to the garage. The space smelled like oil and old summers. On the shelf sat the box with his name in block letters, the one we filled when he left for college. Clippings, ribbons, cheap metals that mean more than they look like they do. I lifted the box and set it on the workbench. I opened it and found the small plastic crown from his 5th birthday, cracked at one point, the gold flaking. I set it on the bench. I found the paper he wrote in 4th grade. My dad is strong because he lifts me up. The handwriting leaned into the future. I read the last line twice. Then I closed the box and put it near the door, ready to go when he came to collect the rest of his things. A quiet gift. A quiet lesson. At 4, the truck engine coughed in the driveway. They had returned without the parents. Pride makes people try one last time at the end. He came in empty-handed and stopped at the hall table. He saw the blue folder. He saw the key I had set on top. His hand hovered. He looked toward the kitchen where I was standing, and for once his face was not all angles and decisions. It was tired. It was a boy's face trying to survive a man's day. "That's for you," I said, "from her, not from me." He picked up the folder like it might break. He turned it over and saw her handwriting. He closed his eyes. He put it under his arm without opening it. "We'll take the rest of the boxes now," he said, voice small, even, careful. "Good," I said. "Guest room is ready if you change your mind." He shook his head once and didn't answer. He went to work. His wife stood at the threshold of the master bedroom and looked in the way a person looks into a church when she does not belong to that faith. For the first time all day, her smile did not show up. She turned away and carried a box with both hands like a person carrying someone else's fragile thing. By 6, the truck was full. The sun slipped down behind the cypress, and the light in the hallway stretched itself thin and then let go. My son stood by the open door with the blue folder under his arm and looked up the stairs toward the room that used to be his when he was a boy. He did not move toward it. He looked at me. "We'll talk," he said. "Not today, but we will." It was the best sentence he had said all week. "We will," I said, "when you've read her letter." He nodded, and for a moment it seemed like something soft passed between us, like a thread thrown and caught. Then his wife called from the truck, sharp, urgent, and he turned toward that voice because that is what you do when you've chosen a team. He went down the path, he climbed into the cab, the engine roared, coughed, steadied, he pulled away. He did not look back. The taillights turned the end of the street red for a second, and were gone. I stood in the doorway until the dust settled. I closed the door with the new key. The house took a deep, even breath. In the kitchen, I took the guest agreement and slid it into the drawer under the napkins. Not out of pettiness, out of hope. People grow. Paper waits. Then I turned off the lights one by one and let the rooms go to sleep. Tonight I would sleep too, not because the work was finished, but because the worst sentence had finally been said out, loud and answered. Tomorrow I would speak to the bank to cancel a wire I had requested a week ago, the one that would have bought them a little apartment near the park as a surprise birthday gift. Tomorrow I would ask the realtor to make one more call. Tomorrow I would take a walk by the lake and tell her what I did, and I believed the water would be on my side. For now, I sat at the table, set my palm flat on the wood, and listened to the clock count the seconds of a house that remembers who kept it. Thursday came in, slow and blue, the kind of morning that leaves dew on the railings and makes the world smell new. I walked to the lake before the sun cleared the cypress. The water was flat as a plate. When the wind came, it pushed a small ripple toward the shore and died there, polite. I stood where she used to stand, with her shawl pulled tight, and told her what had happened, like I promised I would. He came with a truck, I said. He told me to sleep by the paint cans. And then someone called me sir in my own kitchen, and the house remembered my name. A bird dipped and evened itself on the far side. I breathed until my breath matched the small waves. By the time I turned back, the day felt like a page I could write on. At 8 on the dot, the photographer stepped through the door, young, careful with his shoes, respectful with his hands. He had the long look of someone who notices light for a living. "If it's all right, sir," he said, "I'll start with the kitchen. Morning light is soft there." "Start where the room asks you to," I said. He smiled, relieved I understood his language. He took pictures the way surgeons make incisions, neat, necessary, quick. The camera clicked in that bird-like rhythm that always sounds like confidence. In the master bedroom, he paused. "This space has a feeling," he said, not looking at me, looking at the way the curtains moved as if someone had just walked by. "It was our sanctuary," I said. "Treat it like a church." He lowered the camera a fraction and nodded once, as if the room had asked him to bow. He took the shots he needed and none he didn't. He never asked to move the dresser. He never tried to straighten what belonged crooked, for reasons the room understood. The realtor arrived after, quiet as a librarian. "Thursday 8, he said with a small grin, tapping his watch as if I might suspect him of being late. "Photos will be to you by afternoon, sir. If we list the cottage today, we'll be live by evening." He set a file on the table and slid a pen across the wood. "I brought the lockbox paperwork again, in case you changed your mind." "I didn't," I said. "No strangers unless they come with a name on their shirt and my consent in their pocket." "Fair," he said. He flipped to the page that mattered. "Then we won't show until we've scheduled and you've approved." He tapped a second page. "As for the cottage, we already have a couple who saw the pre-listing notes, retired teacher and a nurse. They want a place by the water where their grandchildren can smell pine. I like them." "So would she," I said, and signed. My name flowed more easily today, as if the house had oiled the pen. When I handed the papers back, he tucked them away like something alive. "One more thing," I said. "When we close, I want half the proceeds to go into a fund with her name on it. No plaque, just scholarships for nursing students who work night shifts to get through school. She loved people who worked while the city slept." He looked up, met my eyes, and for a second, he was not a man with a file, but a son someone had raised right. "I'll connect you with a foundation lawyer," he said. "Quiet can be done well." After he left, I called the bank. The woman on the line had a soft drawl that made numbers sound like lullabies. "Cancel the outgoing wire," I said, giving the digits, feeling the odd lightness of saying no to something that would have been yes a week ago. "Correct," I added when she read it back. "Funds stay put." She asked if there was anything else, and I thought for a long second about how money can be a blessing or a trap, depending on the hands it lands in. "Set up a new sub-account," I said finally. "Name it Sunday Plates." She laughed a little. "For small kindnesses," I said, Groceries for a neighbor, books for a child. Someone should always be able to taste the good things first. When the line went quiet, I dialed one more number. The lawyer who had handled our wills answered on the second ring. He still keeps her name in his greeting. It catches in his throat the way it does in mine. I need to add a note, I said. A letter of wishes, put on top where he can see it when I'm gone. It should say that the house is a gift, only if it teaches him to be gentle. And if it doesn't, it goes to the scholarship fund. No drama, just arithmetic. The clause we drafted already covers coercion, he said, voice careful. But a letter can guide where a clause cannot. Write it. Don't explain. Give him your stillness. Stillness is what I've got, I said. Send a messenger. I'll sign today. By noon, the photos were done, and the house had that quiet people leave behind when they've been careful with your things. I cooked eggs and ate them with salt the way she liked. Nothing extra. The phone lay face down on the table. When it buzzed, I let it buzz once and turned it over. A message from my son. Not long, not many words. Can we talk? Just you and me. 2 periods where one would have done. A man trying to keep his sentence standing up. 2:00, I wrote back. Porch. He arrived 5 minutes early, alone. It surprised me, the alone. He had shaved badly. His shirt was clean but buttoned wrong at the top, as if he'd changed his mind halfway. He didn't step onto the porch, until I nodded. He sat on the top step like a boy waiting his turn. For a time we said nothing, just listened to the hum the street makes when people are at work. He ran a thumb along the grain of the wood, as if memorizing it. I read it, he said, eyes on his hand. How many times? 3. He swallowed. 4. And what did she say? He let the question rest between us, like a plate set on a table. She said she was afraid you would be alone, and that she trusted me to be gentle with you, because I used to hold sparrows that fell out of the hedge and not crush them. She said I was born with soft hands and I should keep them soft. She said I should remember who scrubbed the floors I walk on. She said, if I ever told you to sleep in the garage, she would be disappointed in me forever. His laugh came out as a sound that didn't know if it was a laugh or a cough. She drew a little angry face next to that. You know the way she draws. I do, I said. The image rose so clear, a circle, 2 dots, an upturned line for a mouth, that for a second the porch felt crowded with the 3 of us. The wind chime clicked once. And what did you do with that disappointment? He rubbed his eyes with the heels of his hands like a tired child. I carried it around all night, he said. It was heavy. It kept sliding back into my pocket when I tried to put it on the shelf. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw you sitting at the kitchen table with your hands flat on the wood and me standing there with a box like an idiot. I watched him. He did not perform the sentences. He stood in them. It mattered. So, I said, 2 weeks as guests, clean up your boxes by tonight. No friends without asking, no master, no keys. He nodded, too fast, grateful for a rule. We can do that, he said quickly. I can do that. I'll tell her. Tell her or ask her to agree? He blinked. Ask, he said. I'll ask. Good, I said. We begin there. He took a breath that sounded like the first full one he'd had in days. Dad, he said after a minute, I wanted to tell you. Her parents called a lawyer last night. He said weird things on speakerphone about family rights and filial expectations. He used words like elder and dependency. It sounded like a big jacket that doesn't fit. I hung up. They were mad. She was mad that I hung up. I told her I'm not doing this with armies. If we're going to have a life, it has to be built, not stolen. He looked at me as if he was afraid to see the face I would make. I know it's late. I know I'm late. You're on time, I said. On time is when the door opens. He laughed a little at that, relief making him lighter. He wiped the relief away quickly, embarrassed. I was wrong, he said, steady now. I was cruel. I thought if I moved fast enough you'd say yes because you hate shouting. I thought I could borrow. You're quiet and use it like a tool. I'm sorry. I'm ashamed I said the word garage. I don't know how to fix that except to never say it again. He met my eyes without flinching. I am sorry. It was not a perfect apology. It was not an actor's apology. It was the kind that leaves bruises on the inside as it works its way out. I let it land. I let it stay. Good, I said. Now go move your boxes. Then take your wife to dinner and talk to her like you're building a house, not buying one. Tell her the rules. Listen for her fear, because there's always fear under greed. We can work with fear. We cannot work with contempt. He nodded, he stood, he hesitated, he sat back down. One more thing, he said. What were you going to do with the wire? I saw the cancel notice on the email notification this morning. I shouldn't have seen it. I was on your shared device once and... He stopped, embarrassed again. I shouldn't have. I was going to buy you a small apartment near the park, I said. A surprise, a start. Your mother would have liked the walk to the coffee shop and the bakery that sells the almond buns she loved. I canceled it. He took the words like a man who deserves the hit. He let the bruise show. I understand, he said, voice flat the way mine gets when I refuse to let anger have my mouth. I don't expect... You will earn, I said, if you want to. This house is not a vending machine. This family is not a card you tap against a door. We built this with hours and prayers and soup. We keep it with respect. I looked out at the street while I spoke, so he wouldn't be crushed by the weight of the sentences. The cottage will be sold. Half goes to a fund with her name. The rest pays the mortgage and gives me enough to keep lights on and to help where help is right. If you need a place because your pride keeps you from the guest room, you will rent one with your own money. I will match what you save for 6 months if you bring me receipts and your temper. He breathed out, something like gratitude and something like grief. Okay, he said. Okay. His phone buzzed. He looked down. He didn't answer. She's on her way, he said. She wants to clear the air. That's what she called it. Air doesn't need clearing, I said. People do. Bring her to the porch. No armies. If her parents step onto my path today, they will step off again. I'll be kind if they are. He nodded and stood for real this time. He walked to the truck he had brought without the loud music and the men in blue shirts. He drove off careful, like a man who knew the way home was not in the tires. At 2:15, his wife came up the path in heels that clicked hard. She wore sunglasses though the porch was shaded. She sat without asking and crossed her legs like a line drawn too straight. He tells me you're willing to let us stay, she said, cutting the ribbon. Off the conversation before I could tie it. You may stay as guests, 2 weeks, then you leave with all your dignity, or you stay and keep it if you earn it. I said it quietly, folding the words small so they would fit in her head. She watched me through the dark glass. My parents think you're being dramatic. I think your parents like rooms where their voices echo, I said. This porch wasn't built for echo, it was built for tea. She smiled then, real, brief, surprised out of her. You're not what I expected, she said. I'm the man who carried paint up those stairs and put stars on that ceiling, I said. And I'm the man your husband calls dad. That's enough. Tell me what you want. A pause, the kind that tells you she's flipping through a list and seeing that the top choices won't work here. I wanted the master, she said finally, honest at last. I wanted a big room with a big window and a bed that looks like a magazine. I wanted to take a picture and show my friends I am safe. Now, tell me what you need, I said, and the edge dropped out of her voice. I need a home that doesn't move when someone else changes their mind, she said, the sentence coming out quick, surprised by itself. I need him not to promise and then be late. I need a room that is mine. I need someone to call me ma'am, like they call you sir. There is a guest room, I said. It has a solid window. It smells like pine in the morning. It is not a magazine. It is a room in a house where we eat pasta and not cake sometimes. It can be yours for 2 weeks. Then you go make your own. When you have, bring me a photo. I will comment proud and mean it. Her mouth did a small thing, a flicker between a grin and a grimace. You talk like her, she said, like you're passing out homework. Your grade is your life, I said. Pass or fail is on you. She took off the sunglasses then, finally. Her eyes were ringed from a short night. She looked older without the glass, which made her look more like a person. I was cruel, she said, almost to herself. I thought if we acted like we already owned it, you would too. I don't like wanting and not getting. It makes me feel small. I hate feeling small. People who feel small make other people smaller, I said. You can stop. She nodded once, quick, as if filing the sentence away. We'll stay in the guest room, she said. We'll be quiet. We'll be clean. We'll leave on time. She reached into her bag, took out a small ring of keys, and placed it on the step between us. Back door and side gate, she said. Copies we made. We shouldn't have. Thank you, I said, and didn't reach for them yet, because you don't snatch trust like a coin. You let it sit until it chooses you back. She stood. My parents will not like any of this, she said, a warning and a confession. They don't have to like it, I said. They have to live somewhere else. She almost laughed, almost. Then she put the sunglasses back on and left without slamming anything, which, for her, was a kind of bow. By evening, their boxes had retreated into the guest room like tide. The hallway was a hallway again. The master breathed the slow breath rooms breathe when the night comes. I cooked pasta with the sauce I make on Thursdays because Thursday always felt like a day that needs a little help. I set 2 plates on the counter and a third in the oven to stay warm. At 7, he came in carrying salad from the place by the park. He had buttoned his shirt right this time. He set the salad down and looked at the third plate like a man seeing something he forgot he loved. "She'll be a minute," he said. "She's moving shoes like chess." "We have time," I said. We ate at the counter because the table in the dining room holds ghosts and good chairs, and some nights you need a place that forgives you when you drop a fork. He told me small things about work that didn't ask for advice. I told him the photographer had a good eye. We did not touch the big things because big things are better handled when hands are clean. After, I walked the plate from the oven down the hall. I knocked on the guest room door. She opened it a crack and then all the way like a person who decides to be brave. The room looked different with their shoes lined up and her sweater on the chair. It looked like a room learning new names. "Thursday pasta," I said, holding the plate out. "House rule." She took it with both hands. "Thank you," she said. No smile, no extras, just the sentence. "Lights out by 10, I said. "Another house rule, the walls sleep light." "We will," she said, and I believed her. In my room, I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to the house adjust. Pipes thunked once like a tired man settling in. Somewhere outside, a car door closed as the neighbor's son came home late from shift. The wind moved the curtains with the slow determination of a hand reading Braille. On the nightstand, the photo of her in the shawl watched me the way a woman who loves you watches you, not for mistakes, but for effort. I touched the frame. "One more section," I said to the air and to myself, because stories end better when you know where you are in them. One more day. Before I slept, I set 2 things on the dresser. The key ring she had placed on the step and the small plastic crown from his 5th birthday I had found in the garage. Brass and cheap gold, both catching moonlight as if they mattered the same. In the morning, I would drive to the bank to sign letters, to the foundation office to write her name where it should be, to the cottage one last time, to open the windows and let the pine smell say goodbye. And in the evening, I would sit them both at the kitchen table and tell them what the realtor had told me on the phone at 5:30. Something simple, something binding, something that would make his face go a little pale and her hands go very still. I closed my eyes with the shape of that moment already formed, not as revenge, but as justice tuning itself to the right note. The house listened. The stars on the ceiling held fast. The new locks made their small, confident silence. I slept. Morning had the Ease Good Friday light, the kind that washes the kitchen clean, even before you pick up a cloth. I dress the way I do when a day needs to be steady. White shirt, old watch, shoes I can stand in for hours without thinking about my feet. I set the plastic crown on the dresser beside the ring of returned keys and touched both with 2 fingers like I was blessing them. Then I took the folder from the safe and slid it under my arm. The house breathed out that lavender and wood scent, and I breathed it back in. If you're watching this now, tell me where you're watching from. Picture my front step, the paint a little scuffed where her pots used to sit, and the sun climbing slow enough that you can hear it if you listen. At the bank, the air was 10 degrees colder than outside and smelled faintly of mint and printer ink. The teller knew me by name. He asked about the lake, and I told him it was flat as a plate. The manager came out when I asked for witness signatures. I signed the letter of wishes on the small desk near the window. The manager watched my pen like it was a small bird he didn't want to startle. "This part here," he said, tapping a line I had already underlined. "You are certain?" I looked at the sentence. "Upon my passing, the residence transfers to the Sunday Plates Fund, unless my son has complied with the attached covenant for 12 continuous months prior." "Yes," I said, "I am certain." He nodded. He stamped. The sound of that stamp still feels like a door closing softly and correctly. From there, I walked 2 blocks to the lawyer's office. He had a new assistant who brought me water like it was part of her oath. We read the trust deed together, and then I read it again by myself, because some words you should hear alone. I signed, he signed, The notary with the calm eyes signed. "This places the property in an irrevocable trust," he said, the syllables clicking into place like tumblers. "You are the life beneficiary. Upon your death, the remainder goes to the fund named, unless the covenant is satisfied and you amend beneficiaries accordingly while alive. No one can pressure you to change this. If they try, the clause you already know will spring. The county will record by Monday." He slid a copy into a folder with my name on it in neat ink. "I'll messenger the county originals before lunch." On the way home, I stopped at the cottage. I opened the windows and let pine and lake air push out the stale. The small living room looked like it always does when no one is there, hopeful. I set 2 fresh towels on the bathroom rail the way she used to, folded with the edges even. I stood in the doorway and said out loud, "Be kind to whoever comes next." I believe houses here when you give them instructions like that. Back home, I washed my hands, put the trust papers in the safe, and left the folder on the table where paper looks like a fact. At 4:50, the realtor called. "Photos are live, sir," he said, cheerful under the professional. "And we've received a clean cash offer on the cottage at asking within 15 minutes. The retired teacher and the nurse I mentioned. They saw the listing the second it posted, earnest money wired. They'd like a 30-day close, no contingencies beyond standard inspection." "Except," I said, "send me what I need to sign." "And one more thing," he added. "I'll be by at 6 to drop a packet, something you asked for. It will help with clarity." "Come to the kitchen," I said. "We'll be ready." At 5:30, I started the Thursday pasta, even though it wasn't Thursday. Habit is a compass. The sauce moved slow and sure in the pot, the way she liked it. Garlic first, then tomatoes, then patience. The guest room door opened. He stepped into the hall with his sleeves pushed up and his hair combed with more care than skill. "Need help?" he asked. "Set the table," I said. He did carefully, taking plates from the cupboard where she used to keep the good ones and holding them a moment longer than needed. He lined up the forks, corrected them, smiled at himself for correcting them, and left them where they were. His wife came out next, barefoot. A sign a day had done some work on her. She had no sunglasses. She looked at the pasta, breathed in, and said, "Thank you." It was just 2 words. It mattered anyway. At 5:58 there was a knock, 3 firm taps the house had learned. I wiped my hands and opened the door. The realtor stepped in. Same clean tie, same neat folder. "Good evening, sir," he said. He nodded at the 2 of them the way a man nods at people who are new to a room he already understands. At the table, he set down a plain envelope and a slim metal key ring shaped like a small house. The ring held 1 key. "First," he said, "the cottage offer packet. You'll find the terms exactly as we discussed. Sign here and here. I'll counter-accept electronically so they get it tonight." He tapped the envelope, then set his hand on the small key ring. "Second, per your request, the trust confirmation copy from counsel, filed today, and the new master set, with the tag you asked for, engraved." He turned the tag so we could all see it. The tiny steel plate caught the kitchen light. On it, 2 words, "Keep kind." The key itself glinted, simple brass, nothing more than a cut of metal. I didn't reach for it just yet. I let the words sit in the room so they could find their place against the walls. He kept his voice even as he explained. "This ring holds the master for all 3 locks in the safe. The duplicates are in your safe deposit box, as requested. No other copies exist in the wild." He glanced at the 2 across from me. "If additional keys are needed, Mr. Harris will authorize in writing. That authorization now requires his physical presence at my office or the bank with 2 forms of identification. The county record reflects the trust as of this afternoon." My son swallowed. His wife went very still. She had the look of someone who hears a verdict and realizes there is no second courtroom to appeal to. I opened the envelope with the offer, read quickly, found what I needed to see, names, numbers, inspection window, and signed. The pen didn't wobble. The realtor slid the signed pages back to safety with that librarian neatness. He stood to leave, then paused and looked at me as if remembering something we had agreed not to say out loud. "I'll see myself out," he said. "Congratulations on the cottage, sir." He looked once more at the small key ring on the table, and on the rest. When the door shut, the kitchen felt bigger. I pushed the sauce off the heat and put the lid on the pot. Steam curled up and disappeared. I sat. They sat too, as if the chairs had asked them. The little keyring waited between us like a coin on a bar waiting to be claimed. I want to be clear, I said, so we don't spend the next 10 years fighting shadows. I touched the ring, but didn't pick it up. Today I place this house into an irrevocable trust. I am the life beneficiary. I live here until I die or until I decide to surprise everyone. When I die, this house goes to the Sunday Plates Fund, her fund, unless the covenant is met. The covenant is simple enough to write and hard enough to live. I slid a single sheet across the table. He read without touching. She read by leaning, not wanting to leave fingerprints on the future. The covenant had 4 lines. 1. For 12 months, you will not attempt to force, shame, or coax me to transfer property, keys, or control. 2. For 12 months, you will show respect inside this home. No orders, no mockery, no guests invited without asking. 3. For 12 months, you will build your own home, hold a lease or mortgage in your names, paid from your work, not mine. 4. At the end of 12 months, if you have done these things and we have shared 1 meal a week without anger, I may add you as contingent beneficiaries. If not, the house goes where soup is served and lights are kept on for people who need them. He read the lines twice. When he lifted his eyes, something in his face had settled. That's fair, he said. He didn't look to her for permission. He looked to me for instruction. We can do that. She looked between us. The old reflex rose fast and tried to take the wheel. I saw it in the set of her mouth. Then it let go. I can do that, she said, voice small but not weak. She pointed to line 3. We'll need to find a place we can actually afford. No more pretending. No more moving trucks that arrive before the math does. Good, I said. I canceled the wire that would have made that pretending easier. I will match what you save every month up to a number I wrote at the bottom. Bring me receipts and your temper. We will treat it like exercise. Boring, honest, good. He exhaled, and it had the shape of gratitude. Okay, he said again, not as a stall this time, but as a beginning. I picked up the keyring. The metal was cool the way correct decisions are. I weighed it in my palm, then set it back down and slid it a half inch in their direction. This ring stays with me, I said, but I will do something your mother would approve of. I opened the drawer under the napkins and took out a plain brass key with a blue rubber cap we used for guests. I set that key on the table beside the ring. This is the guest key. It opens the back door and the gate. It does not open the safe. It does not open the master. It opens the kitchen to Thursday pasta, to coffee in the morning, to a seat at the table if you come with kindness. If you carry it like a weapon, it disappears. If you carry it like a promise, it will feel like home. He reached for the blue-capped key with both hands the way a man reaches for a child he doesn't want to drop. He didn't put it in his pocket. He held it like you hold a fragile thing, and then set it on the table again and slid it back half an inch as if to say, "Not yet, Dad. Let me earn it." It was the best move he'd made in years. We ate. The pasta tasted the way it always does when the house is quiet. Simple, right? He cleared plates without being asked. She wiped the counter in the small circular motion she must have borrowed from watching me. In the doorway to the guest room, she paused. "I'll send my parents a message," she said. "They won't like any of this, but they don't live here." She looked at me, and I saw a kind of truce cross her face. "If I take a picture from the guest room window, will the light be good in the morning?" "Yes," I said. "It will smell like pine too." She nodded. She went down the hall and closed the door softly, as if the door were tired. He stayed. We sat in the kitchen with our elbows on the wood and our hands quiet. "Do you remember when you taught me to ride a bike?" he asked suddenly. "You let go without telling me." "I didn't let go," I said. "I just moved my hand from the seat to the air." He smiled because he remembered falling anyway. "I told her last night I didn't want to become the man who would tell his father to sleep in the garage," he said. Saying it out loud felt like coughing up a nail. "Keep coughing," I said. "The body gets better at it." We washed the last bowl and set it on the rack. He took the blue-capped key again, and this time put it on the hook by the back door, his hand slow, deliberate, not in his pocket, in the room, in sight. That small act lodged itself in the house like a stitch. At 8:15, the Realtor texted a single line. "Offer accepted, earnest received, inspection Monday." I sent back, "Thank you." Then I set my phone face down. The night ran its hand along the fence. Somewhere a dog barked twice and decided his work was done. Before bed, I stood in the master bedroom doorway and looked at the two small things on the dresser catching moonlight. The plastic crown and the engraved ring, cheap gold and honest brass. I took the crown in my palm and felt the tiny flaking points. I set it inside the top drawer, on the felt where her bracelets used to sleep, and closed the drawer softly. I put the ring in my pocket. It sat there with the weight of something that knows which doors belong to it. I slept hard and without dreams. In the morning, I made tea and sliced an apple the way I do. He came in and took the knife from the board carefully and cut a second apple without asking what to do with it. He set the slices on a plate and pushed it toward me. She came in a minute later and opened the cupboard above the stove without hunting for candles or spices because she remembered where things live. The wind chime moved once, twice. The house seemed to nod. If you made it to the end with me, tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you've ever had to take your keys back from someone you love. Tell me if you would have done it earlier, or softer, or harder. Like this, if the story kept you in your seat, share it so someone who needs a calm voice can hear one, and drop your comment below. What would you have said when the moving truck rolled up? I'll be here, by the lake, reading.